This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for September 27th, 2025. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. Charlie Kirk and the Jews. It is no secret that the American Israel Political Action Committee, or AIPAC, has a stranglehold on the American government. I'm not going to support everything that Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, or Mossad does. After all, only a fool would, especially when they drag American soldiers into the fray, even if it is just our equipment and tax dollars. I am fully opposed. A simple solution would be to not give money to their enemies, to not demonize them on the world stage, and to produce oil heroes to not enrich the terrorists who attack Israel and America. With this, we might have a lot more peace in the region than we would with American intervention. Now, what does this have to do with Charlie Kirk? That is an excellent question. It has been proposed that groups like PragerU are being controlled by Israel. Commentators like his so-called rival Nick Fuentes and former ally Candace Owens have really emphasized this. And the latter claims that because Kirk does not support Israel enough, their government had him killed. I find that a little unlikely because government assassins are usually a lot cleaner. Either way, until these people have something other than speculation, I will not give them the time of day. However, as much as there are unanswered questions, the fact remains that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Forgiving the unforgivable before her husband was even buried. Erica Kirk has forgiven her husband's killer. Remember that if the murderer repents and asks Jesus to forgive his sins, he and Charlie Kirk will be together in heaven. That is a very difficult notion for the human mind to comprehend. We must forgive the indefensible in others because Jesus has redeemed the indefensible in us. Now I must point out the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. She has forgiven him, but has not reconciled. He must still face justice for what he has done, for taking away a husband and father. However, he still has a chance to escape hell. And if she can forgive him, I wonder if she can forgive Kimmel as well. Kimmel was not fired. After Jimmy Kimmel decided to lie about Charlie Kirk's killer, claiming that this lunatic liberal who was radicalized by Antifa was for some reason a member of the Make America Great Again movement. Advertisers pulled their money from his time slot. And even if I do not have sponsors, yet, I know that if you want them to stay by your side, you do not produce a brand that they do not want to be near. These companies want to make money. And if their brand is associated with fake news and glorifying a murderer, their brand could be affected and they could lose money. It is the great circle of capitalism. However, in the end, ABC brought Kimmel back, and he will undoubtedly spread the same hate and disinformation that got him suspended. However, naturally their own party was upset about any possibility that he would not be on the air, and responded the only way that liberals know how, countering censorship with violence. In response to Jimmy Kimmel being indefinitely suspended for his distasteful rhetoric, a California man unleashed gunfire into a local ABC station. Name me one Fox affiliate that got the same treatment after Tucker Carlson was fired. Why not? After all, it was unjust. This is because liberals and conservatives have two different mindsets. We see people whom we disagree with and debate them. There may be a fringe who use violence, but we, as a whole, condemn them. When liberals see someone with whom they disagree, they may not be open to a debate. Then when the worst happens, Democrats will defend the indefensible and celebrate the killing. Now, as bad as this is, sadly, I must report that those on the right are making things bad for our side. All speech is free speech. Attorney General Pam Bondi argued for targeting anyone who uses so-called hate speech.
Fun fact, hate speech has never been defined by a court of law.
Fortunately for all parties involved, no pun intended, the pushback for her comments seems universal. Liberals do not want her doing this because it could diminish their power. Conservatives do not want her doing this because it is a matter of principle. The two sides are not the same, because hate speech is a definition so broad that it can describe anything. I once saw an article about a bag of dog poop left on a porch by a blind man who did not know where to put it. As I recall, it was considered a hate crime because he placed it in front of a black student union building. Even though there was no way that it could have been a hate crime, the students wanted it persecuted as such. Bondi is opening a can of worms. Now, while hate speech is not real, hateful people are very real. Dearborn rejects Christians. There are consequences to letting in people from third world countries. There is another word that President Trump used, but I do not like to say it. The city of Dearborn, Michigan named a street after a reporter who celebrates Hamas and Hezbollah. That is right. Two terror organizations that want to kill Americans. It is like naming a ship after Harvey Milk. When Edward Barham confronted the mayor over this, the mayor told Barham that the city would hold a celebration when he leaves the town for good. Remember that there are some ethnic groups that you are allowed to openly criticize, but other ethnic groups are not allowed to be criticized. America has let in untold numbers of these people, and even if President Trump can deport every single illegal one, the damage may already be too deep to fix. That is why we do not put our trust in the elephant or the donkey, but in the lamb. Speaking of corruption, let us talk about the United Nations, because President Trump had some words for the globalists. President Trump versus the United Nations. President Trump went to the United Nations and gave a speech that the globalists really hated. I honestly suggest you listen to the whole thing as he hammers down the principles of America First really well. However, I would like to touch on a few highlights. President Trump talked about how some weapons were so dangerous that no one should have them. Whether this be the nuclear weapons that the terrorists across the Middle East are fighting to get, or bioweapons created in China and then unleashed onto the world. President Trump also pointed out that the narrative went from global warming to global cooling to climate change. Either way, the solution is the same, and the predictions failed. President Trump also mentioned that countries around the world are willing to do business with America, and that he is not afraid to use tariffs as much as he has to. Finally, President Trump mentioned that nations around the world need to protect their own borders. When you import third world people, you get third world problems. These criminals need to be arrested and/or deported. His speech did get a lot of applause, but I am not sure if that was just them trying to save face, or the fact that the ideas of the globalists are not as popular as they used to be. Either way, the UN is known to lie over and over again. They also censor a lot of information, like Google. Google admits censorship. Google has admitted what we already knew. They were censoring accounts on behalf of the Biden administration, only furthering Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird is here to remind you to never question the official narrative. My account was flagged because I had the audacity to reference election interference back in 2021. I linked said election interference to the fake news about the whipping of illegals. I did not even mention anything that was done during the election, but kept it vague. Either way, my account was flagged. Supposedly Google and YouTube will be reinstating accounts. But that is like dropping someone in a hole and offering to fill it in halfway to let them out. However, something that is not being addressed fully in this, with how many voices were silenced even before the Biden administration, could this have shifted things to the point that we would not have had Biden in the White House?
Only Poppins would know.
One of YouTube's favorite things to censor is so-called medical misinformation. Is Tylenol safe? There's a world of difference between correlation and causation. There are more heat strokes when people buy lemonade, and more frostbite when people buy hot chocolate. Neither of the drinks cause the condition. They just happen to be bought and sold more during times of the year when frostbite and heat strokes are more common. Several studies, including some from Harvard, have linked pregnant women taking acetaminophen, or Tylenol, to autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in children. Now, nothing is conclusive yet. I have been around long enough to see doctors call coffee the best thing for a person, and something that will lead to an early death, over and over again. However, it is something to at least consider, and mothers need to be aware of a potential risk. The Trump administration has also implied that there might be a connection with certain medications that are mandatory for children. Are all of these things linked and connected?
Only Poppins would know.
Now on the subject of mandatory drugs, I have to call out Fox News. Fox calls for eugenics. If I'm going to have any credibility, I need to be willing to call out both sides of the aisle. As such, I invite you to look at this clip from Fox and Friends.
They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
There's no kind way to put it. Eugenics is killing people who are considered unfit. Authoritarianism is killing people with whom you disagree. He later gave what I would consider an insufficient apology.
In the morning, we were discussing the murder of Irina Zaruska in Charlotte, North Carolina, and how to stop these kinds of attacks by homeless, mentally ill assailants, including institutionalizing or jailing such people so they cannot attack again. Now, during that discussion, I wrongly said they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark. I'm obviously aware that not all mentally ill homeless people act as the perpetrator did in North Carolina, and that so many homeless people deserve our empathy and compassion.
So far, we have Pam Bondi wanting to arrest business owners who will not print signs for Charlie Kirk's memorial. And now a Fox News host argues for this. Sadly, this is what the left often accuses conservatives of doing. Granted, some of the liberal outlets are not including the first half, where the other host was talking about homeless people declining aid, and thus eliminating the context. However, I would like to point out that with context, it is even worse. This kind of rhetoric is very dangerous. Something that is just as dangerous are armed liberal activists. Story of the shell casings. The shell casings at Charlie Kirk's assassination had Antifa phrasing on them. There were also some gay activist phrases. Lo and behold, he was radicalized by Antifa and was dating another guy. Naturally, Jimmy Kimmel and others decided that this was proof positive that he was a member of the MAGA movement. So what are we to make of the Dallas shooter? The shell casings from when he attacked immigration and customs enforcement had anti-ICE messaging. I'm waiting for Jimmy Kimmel to call this shooter a member of the MAGA movement as well. After all, liberals, despite being the party of riots, have convinced themselves that Republicans are racist and violent, all without a single shred of evidence. Now let us end this week with a tragedy that has led to a lot of fake news. Was it really a lynching? When it comes to a lot of crimes that are in the news, I generally do not like to comment right away. Not only are a lot of the facts still coming in, but we have to wait for the actual journalists to do their job. Betwixt the reporters of the fake news who just get in the way. Now you heard the title, and so you know what this is about. The two innocent men who were hanged in Mississippi. The technical definition of a lynching is that it is a killing that is done for justice outside of the law, and is often done by a mob. There's no proof of the former or the latter, and so I do not think that this can be called a lynching. It can be called a hanging, but that is a separate legal term. Furthermore, this was not motivated by skin shade, as the second victim did not have much melanin at all. If there was foul play and someone killed these men, it is the humble opinion of this commentator that this fits more along the lines of a deranged killer than racism or bigotry. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.